Chapter 17. The Battle. Bai Su entered the throne room. The two cybernetic beasts on either side bowed as he walked past. "You wish to see me," he said. Radabu was consulting a young woman to his right. He stood up. "Yes, we need to invade the people of Eshel." Bai Su seemed puzzled. "What is our purpose?" Radabu started to walk towards him as he spoke. "There's a talk of a rebellion of significant force." He stopped in front of Bai Su, staring directly into his eyes. "We must stop this before it begins." Just then a commotion was heard. Screams and explosions echoed in the halls outside. Bai Su immediately turned to pursue the incident when the throne room doors opened. The guards were killed instantly, sliced in two by Kalada's blade. Ozma stepped in, followed by three of the Kalada's tribesmen. Bai Su immediately cast a black spell, hitting two of Kalada's men and killing them. Ozma hit his wrist pod and shot a laser cutting through Bai Su's calf. He fell in pain, but only for a moment. Bai Su put his hands together and pushed the floor, sending a shockwave throughout the room. Ozma and Kalada were flung helplessly. Radabu screamed, "No!" and Bai Su turned to see why. Radabu threw his hand, and a glowing ball of orange came down upon Bai Su, paralyzing him. Ozma was trying to get his bearings, and Kalada was now focused on his target, Radabu. He leapt across the others that were still coming to. It was short-lived as Radabu revealed himself. It was Theodora. The plan was already set in motion, but Ozma and Kalada were unaware. Theodora took her left hand and caught Kalada in midair. He was going nowhere. A great smoke ring suddenly appeared in the middle of the room, and Dharma Su and Theodora's sisters came from it. Then Bai Su broke the spell. Theodora shot backwards into the wall, never seeing it coming. Dharma Su immediately threw his protection spell. "Glenda!" he yelled. She threw her arms out. Bai Su was enraged. He began tossing spell after spell, trying to weaken the shield. "Elmira, you must take him," he shouted, knowing that the shield would not hold. "Master, I can't hold on." Glenda was beginning to weaken. "Just a little longer," he whispered to her. Ozma and Kalada were now on their feet, and Ozma had never witnessed anything like this. Even with all his technologies, he had no idea of what he was a part of. Elmira stepped up to cripple Bai Su. As she reached out, he turned and grabbed her by the throat. "How dare you? Just like your mother." He threw her across the floor. Dharma Su, like any father, released his protection spell and took his shot. It hit his target with excruciating pain. Bai Su fell. The next one came, and Bai Su retaliated with a shield of his own. Shots ricocheted in every direction. Fire rained down from the room. Ozma ran to Elmira, who was still unconscious. He looked around and noticed Kalada lying injured, impaled by debris. He was still alive, but his other tribesmen had been killed. He wasn't sure of what to do. He took out his pen and gave Elmira a shot of adrenaline. She began to move slowly. Theodora was now on her feet and making her way to her father. Jezebel jumped across the ceiling while Glenda kept protection on all of them. However, Bai Su was far from done. He gave a bone-crushing blow, and Dharma Su hit the throne room floor. "Master!" Theodora was now glowing orange as she threw a body blast. Bai Su defended the spell with just a flick of his hand. He pulverized Dharma Su again repeatedly. Jezebel teleported and got behind him, trying desperately to tear off his head. Bai Su grabbed her and tossed her like a rag doll. Bai Su started to confront Glenda, pushing her spell of protection into submission. Glenda was about to break when Elmira got to her feet. "No!" Elmira screamed. She dashed across the room at her father with extraordinary speed. Her body was glowing, now filled with rage. She grabbed her father and reached into his chest. He grasped her hand, but Elmira was everything Bai Su feared. As she took out her father's heart and flung it to the floor, Jezebel teleported back behind him. Elmira smacked her away, and within an instant she ripped Bai Su's head from his shoulders. There was nothing but weeping and sorrow, and Jezebel lay on the floor holding her mouth. Glenda was in tears and Theodora speechless. Elmira, however, was standing holding her father's head, covered in blood. Then she felt a sharp pain. She dropped the head and stumbled sideways into the arms of Ozma. "Are you okay?" Ozma knew that she couldn't be, but needed to make contact. Elmira tossed him aside. "Leave me!" Theodora looked at Dharma Su. Our master is dead. She was now crying. Elmira, are you all right? Answer me, shouted Jezebel. Elmira was now in the corner of the room. She turned towards her sisters and screamed, Elmira! Theodora got up to go to her, and she spun herself into a cloud of smoke and was gone. Jezebel, do you know where she went to? Cried Glinda. Jezebel reached out, trying to feel her sister's presence. It's difficult to tell where she went. Theodora was becoming impatient. What do you mean? You can't find her? Use your teleport. Jezebel broke down. No, I can't find her. I'm sorry. Ozma was now trying to make himself known. Please, we need to try and relax. He could feel their eyes upon him. I'm very confused. He stood almost motionless, waiting for a response. The witches looked at each other. Who are you? Asked Theodora. He was eager to have made some sort of contact. I am Ozma, he said. So you are a wizard? Asked Glinda. No, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I am not a wizard. Ozma was almost awaiting his death. He had witnessed things that he could still not perceive. This cannot be, said Glinda. Our master has never been wrong. Kalada pulled the long steel rod from his chest as he stood. If you are who you are, then where is my brother, Radabu? Theodora rubbed her eyes and replied, We have him secured in his master's chambers. Kalada knew he must complete his task. Ozma, I must finish what I set out to do. Ozma went up to his friend. You are hurt. You need time to heal. Kalada looked at him, assuring, He is here secured. I will make it quick. Just then Jezebel jumped in. Excuse me, but what is it you think you are going to do? Kalada exhaled abruptly from his pain, trying to speak. He is my brother. He has caused so much pain in these lands that were once rich with magic and prosperity. Kalada looked down as a tear fell from his eye. He has done this to me and killed my brother Jay and my sister Emma. I have swore revenge ever since. The sisters looked at Dharmasu and back again. Theodora spoke for them. Then today this darkness ends. Do what you must. Kalada then turned and walked down the empty corridor to his brother's chambers. I am sorry for your master, Ozma sighed as he spoke. Jezebel was now knelt down by Dharmasu's head. I suppose this is somewhat of a shock to you. Glinda was now crying again. Do you wish to stay in Quanta? Inquired Theodora. Ozma was always fascinated by other dimensions and tales of magic and mystery, but going home was now what he wanted more than ever. I wish to go home, he said. We will do everything we can to fulfill your wish. Theodora stood holding Glinda. Glinda is the Witch of the North. You will stay with her until we figure out where Elmira went. Outside, Kalada screamed and came crashing into the throne room doors backwards. He tumbled into a corner, almost crushing Ozma and Theodora. A chill entered the room, and the fear that Dharmasu had discussed crept in. It was Radabu. Well, hello, my pretties, he said psychotically. Looks like when your master died, the spell broke. He walked a little further in, smiling, and instantly an evil came over his face. Now you will all die. A blackness of smoke began to engulf the room. Glinda immediately put protection around all of them, Kalada included. The smoke was now penetrating the shield. Theodora was the next eldest and strongest of the sisters. Glinda, she said, release the shield when I tell you to. She looked at her, and everyone close your eyes. Theodora was now glowing with a power so bright that the darkness was devoured by it. Now, she yelled. Glinda dropped the shield and the darkness was gone. Radabu hollered and smacked his hands together. A great vibration came from them, pulverizing everyone. They all lay across the room, motionless. Ozma was now in and out of consciousness. He looked around and saw Jezebel being tossed, Glinda trying to get to her feet, and Theodora throwing spell after spell to not much avail. He had to try to do something, so he took out his wrist pod pen and glanced at Kalada. Kalada looked over at him as if to say, okay. Ozma hit the switch and a flame shot directly at Radabu, burning him. He screamed as the flames ignited higher. He was now in a frenzy, trying to put out the flames with ice spells. Again, Kalada yelled. Once again, Ozma threw the flame and Radabu reignited. Brother! Radabu was now himself. Please do not do this to me. Kalada got to his feet. My brother has been dead for years. Now his soul must die. Jezebel looked at him, knowing Kalada was injured and his torment could now end. He gestured for her to finish it, and she nodded back. With one leap, Jezebel spun and kicked Radabu, turning him into ash. It is done, Kalada said as he fell to the floor. Ozma ran to him. Kalada, are you okay? Can you hear me? Kalada smiled for the first time in years. He could remember the man he was before becoming this monster, when his family was whole. I will be fine. He closed his bloodshot eye and then opened it, looking back at Ozma. And you? He questioned. Ozma was almost speechless. What can I say? I have never experienced anything like this. Kalada leaned forward. I am forever in your debt. Ozma put his hand on Kalada's chest. I'm not sure why I'm here, or why all this has happened, he said in a confusing manner. A voice carried from across the room. Because you are the wizard. Theodora and Jezebel were now lying with Glenda, who was hurt on the floor. They all made eye contact and Theodora smiled. Thank you, wizard.